Bob Collymore, CEO of Safaricom. Congratulations on your release of your full year results. If I can just quickly give the viewers an indication of what they were. Revenue was up 12.83%. Your costs were up 16.74%. We'll get to that in a second. Operating profit was actually up 3.93%. Profit before tax down 404%. Profit after tax down 404%. And your dividend, you increased 10%. Now, looking through those results, what struck me was this phenomenal second half rebound where you've delivered the highest earnings per share, I think, that has been delivered in Safaricom's history. It seemed a game of two halves. How would you characterize these results, Bob?
The first half was a tough half for the economy at large. I mean, It wasn't just Safaricom. I think you were the one who used the word, we were a bellwether when we announced our half year, and a number of other companies followed suit. So it was a tough year. But we then realized that we really needed to batten down the hatches and get the second half delivered. We'd done our calculations, we'd done our sums before we got to the end of the half year, clearly, which is one reason why we did the tariff adjustment. And this is not always popular, but we have to look at this in the round. So we have to look at this from the perspective of the customer as well as the perspective of the shareholder, because you don't have one without the other. And so we made that decision right at the beginning of the second half, and it was the right decision. So we used that as well as continue to drive customer acquisition. So if you look at the customer, I mean, you just give the numbers.
That's right.
19 million customers. Every time the CCK announced their quarterly statistics, you'd have seen that our share of customer acquisition was higher than our competitors. So the second half, it was very, very much about getting your head down and delivering.
So, I mean, second half, obviously, the voice reprice worked out well. You lost some minutes, but you got a greater gain in the price increase. And that really remains the mainstay of the business, doesn't it? I think it's still 66% of revenues.
Yes.
If we drill into the business, so voice really, I think that was obviously well done on that decision. I think that went down well. And if you look at M-Pesa, which seems to me, I remember Michael telling me one day, Ali Khan, it's just a sticky product. It's a few years back. It seems to me it's now really the jewel in the crown. Sticky it is, but yet it's shown tremendous growth. The reprice that you did came very close to the end of the full year, so I doubt that's fed in. So we should see some acceleration next year from that as well. Are you happy with what's happened with M-Pesa?
We're very happy. I mean, there's some bits which we're not happy about with M-Pesa because it does still occasionally let customers down, and that's not good. We still have problems around float management, and we're taking a harder stance on float. But unfortunately, we're also seeing more of our M-Pesa dealers coming under security threats. So unfortunately, more armed robberies, etc. So we need to balance those two things, and I need to keep working with those agents to make sure that we protect their own personal welfare ahead of the business. But having said that, how pleased are we with M-Pesa? We're very pleased. Even the pricing readjustment we did, and I call it a pricing readjustment because I think we may have failed to have communicated well what we were trying to do. And there are a couple of things we were trying to do. One is we were trying to reduce the lower band, or we did in fact reduce the lower band. So it's as low as 10 shillings you can transfer. And the lowest fee for transferring is now down to 3 shillings, down from 5. That's about more financial inclusion. Now, of course, we did raise the fees for the higher bands. So whilst it's still early days, early indications are that the number of transactions at the lower levels have increased by about 50%.
Wow.
All right? So that says that it was the right thing to do. We have further deepened the use of M-Pesa for lower spending customers. We've seen no difference at the higher band because it still is an efficient, cost-efficient, and physically very efficient way of moving money. So M-Pesa, what Michael said at the time was that it was a sticky product, and I was on the board at the time. And Michael persuaded the board that it was the right thing to do because it will be a strong loyalty tool. It is a strong loyalty tool. You see many of the competitors complaining about it now. But a loyalty tool is designed to do exactly that, to keep customers loyal. But more importantly now, it's now making a big, big impact in a number of other ways. So if you look at microinsurance, we will launch a microinsurance product, micro-health insurance product, which means that people can save pay premiums as little as 10 shillings. Because, how else can you collect 10 shillings? There is no other more efficient way of collecting 10 shillings than through M-Pesa. So you can, in fact, we call it insurance, but an insurance is as little as 10 shillings. You can save on market day, for example. So when you're sick, you're going to get fixed. Pregnant women, and I have a particular interest in maternal and infant mortality here.
Yes, and you got recognition via the UN on that.
Thanks. Well, the work is still to come. But we think that we can make such a big impact on improving maternal health through the use of M-Pesa. So M-Pesa has a whole range, and it is one of the most exciting things that we have running in the company because of the impact that we can make on customers.
Can I just come back to two things? I mean, I felt that some of that financial inclusion story got lost on the reprice at that time, right? I mean, just to say, you said in your presentation here that 75%, I think, of the financial inclusion in Kenya, and Kenya has this extraordinary financial inclusion rate given our average per capita income. It's way off the charts. Is M-Pesa responsible for that? Is that what you were saying?
Well, what the statistics are showing is that if you look at financial inclusion in Kenya, it's rated about 80%. If you take M-Pesa out of that, it's rated at about 15%. So,
wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's really been a massive story for the Kenyan, for the economy as well, right?
It is. And paradoxically, when we did the tariff readjustment,
yes,
I was in Zanzibar with a bunch of central bankers, looking exactly on this issue of financial inclusion.
Yes.
And the governor had kindly invited us to be there and to take part in some of the discussions. We are the benchmark. We're the benchmark by which Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Tanzania, all these other countries are attempting to get to this level of financial inclusion.
And just how would
and incidentally, a statistic which I only learned when I was there was that more than 1 in 2 of the world's mobile money transfers conducted on M-Pesa.
That's right.
So we actually do more than 50% of the entire world's mobile money transactions.
And why would you say it's been so successful in Kenya in particular? Because I know of, people have been trying to roll it out in many other countries and jurisdictions, but it has not had the same traction. I saw this number that you got 40,000, is it nearly 40,000 M-Pesa agents. I think maybe we should praise the regulator who sort of allowed this thing to grow and gain traction. But how would you define its success, given the lack of success in so many other places?
I couldn't brush over the role of the regulators. Actually, it's more than one regulator. They stand head and shoulders above their counterparts in other parts of the world. They have been very enlightened. They've worked with us every step of the way. And as we wanted to increase the limit and lower the limit, they've been there. In fact, what they've been doing is they've been pushing us to lower the limit and also to lower the fees. Now, they're kind of happy with where we are in the fees, but we both know, both the regulator and we, know that we want to keep pushing those fees down as much as we can. But, it still has to make financial sense. But it will come down over time. So the regulator, I think, takes, much of the glory in this. The second thing, of course, is that I have to pay tribute to Michael. Because Michael had the vision and the tenacity to push this through. At the point when the banking community were arguing against this, and arguing and lobbying very hard, I remember we were sitting on the board discussing this, and Michael's tenacity took him into the offices of the late John Machuru. And Michael physically demonstrated it to him, and that kind of swung things at that point. And Michael's always been very fond of him. Ever since that. I mean, I think he's thought of him before then. But,
that's right.
So between the finance ministry, the regulator, the then CEO, the telecommunications regulator, the Ministry of Information and Communication, that whole combination worked to make it an enabling environment. And then, of course, we had the most important people in all of this, and this was the Kenyan people.
Yes.
The Kenyan people who embraced this with such a passion
Yeah.
that I often joke, but it's only a half joke, to say that, if we really have a serious problem with M-Pesa, I'd have to be flown out of this building because justifiably, Kenyans will take a very dim view.
But it's also an extraordinary confirmation of the loyalty to the brand, that people feel that you're a trustee of their money in this manner, right?
Yes, it's interesting that if you go back 6 years or so and say, okay, Alican, give me some money and I'm going to give you a thing called an e-wallet.
Yes.
You're gonna
Yes,
think,
in
really?
Kenya.
In any part of the world.
That's right.
And you'll say, well, so what evidence do I have? I'll send you a text message. It's actually quite implausible in a lot of ways. But Kenyans, not just in that, in lots of other things, Kenyans are embracing technology at a hearty rate. And
that's right.
This is a great industry to be in. And for sure, this is a great company to be in.
I saw headlines like Silicon Valley of mobile banking, and I think that those are valid headlines. Now, let me ask you another question. You are gradually, there's an intersection point between what you're doing and what the banks are doing. And you've created this channel. The problem was the expense of the channel for a bank. You've created this, you've collapsed that cost, that channel cost. How, at this intersection point, where do you see Safaricom going? I mean, can Safaricom become a bank?
Well, the intersection could either lead to a crash,
yes,
or it could lead to a merging.
Yeah.
And I think where we are is we are leading to a merge.
Yes.
Now, if you take one of the earlier banking products that we did, which was M-Cashier with equity.
Yeah, I would like to ask you about that.
I think, both James Maggie and I, we talk about this. We both feel that we've never really put as much marketing effort into this thing,
right,
and management support into this as we should have done, and we have to.
Yeah.
James and I, we really do have to sit down with our teams to make this thing work better. But this is a merging of the two things, not a clash. And I think banks, we never really wanted to become a bank, and banks, I don't think ever really wanted to become mobile operators. But we looked at it as more confrontationally in the early days. Now we collaborate with all the banks. Their customers, their partners. You can go pick up your M-Pesa via ATMs. You can move. I could move money from my bank to my M-Pesa account just on my handset.
Yes.
I don't even have to go into the bank anymore to do it.
So you feel they bought into this sort of collaboration, win-win?
We're doing different things with different banks. So I'm doing different things with KCB than the things that I'm doing with CBA or with Equity or with any of the other banks. And I'm fortunate because I have so many banks to choose from.
Yes,
Kenya
43.
has 43 banks. They have fewer operators. They only have 4.
Now to move to the other revenue segment, which is data. I've seen a lot of comments about you that you're looking to own the fiber. You're looking to take back some kind of control over that. The growth, were you happy with the growth you saw full year in the data? Do you think there's more room? You use this wonderful phrase, you want to democratize data. I really like that. How would you define the data business right now for you?
I would say it wasn't bad, but you asked whether I was happy with it,
yes,
and the answer is no.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
That's what
with
I've sensed. Yeah.
I'm not happy. I think we could have done better, and I think this year we have to do better.
Yes.
We don't have enough devices out there because we didn't think that actually you need to really focus on getting smartphones. When we did the Huawei
$100 phone.
ideas, that was a big. And when we look at the ARPUs coming out of those handsets,
yes,
they're fantastic.
Yeah.
The great thing about those is that the level of the services you can deliver on a smartphone is not the same as a GPRS phone. It's not even the same as a 3G phone. So this year, we're going to focus very much on getting those 3G handsets and particularly smartphones. Now, unfortunately, with smartphones, the pricing is still a challenge.
Yes.
I was in China the other day speaking with the president of Huawei.
Yes, I saw his man was here.
Yeah, Winley, who's a very close friend of Safaricom's. And the cost structure going into a smartphone is still quite high, and ditto for tablets. With tablets we've got some other opportunities. So if you take your, one of the 3 iPads you have at home.
Yes, oh yes.
If you take a Wi-Fi version of that iPad, the cost is a lot lower.
That's right.
And therefore, if we can get a Wi-Fi tablet into a school, then you can get a more affordable. Now, if that person then wants to take the tablet home and connect then we can provide a router, a Wi-Fi router, which allows them to do that. But of course, we're not talking about the average home. This is still very much a middle-class home. So we want to get the devices in there. We want to make sure that we get the tariffing structure right. The tariffing structure needs to be much more sophisticated than the stuff that we've done in the past.
Yes.
And you follow me on Twitter, so
well, I saw there was quite a blowback.
You'd have seen the abuse. I mean,
yes.
Some of it was pretty abusive.
I didn't look after a while. I just.
Well, the thing with Twitter,
I got a bit depressed.
It could get you depressed, but the thing is, if you're on Twitter, you can't just say, "I'm not going to look at this stuff because it's unpleasant." So actually, I read every tweet.
Yes.
And Marianne is here, and I know she also reads all of my tweets, I think. But I read every tweet because I have to sense what people are saying. I think advising me to take my clothes off and running into a cactus tree was probably a bit over the top.
A little bit extreme.
But at least I understood the sentiment that was coming. But Unlimited is a very crude way of delivering data propositions. So over the course of the next 3 weeks or so, the team have been working, continue to work on developing some smarter data plans, which is going to move away from actually just doing how many shillings is it per megabyte to a more interesting way of doing it, which we'll reveal when the time comes. The same for voice, incidentally.
Yes.
Voice, people just talk about, is it 3 shillings a minute, 4 shillings a minute, 5 shillings a minute, daytime, nighttime. We need to be much more creative about how we do that, and a lot of thought is now going into that. We don't want to rush into doing it.
Now, to go back to the results and the numbers, you raised the dividend 20%. I think I described it to Bloomberg as a very muscular move. I mean, I don't think anybody expected an increase in the dividend. Let me be frank about that. So I'm really pleased you'd managed to do that. What was the decision, the process behind that? You felt you had a lot of small shareholders who were reliant on the cash flow, and obviously you had a huge rebound in the second half. You threw off a lot more cash. What was your thinking around that?
Since we listed, our dividend is set at the 8 billion. This year we've delivered a higher EBITDA than we've ever delivered in the past. And, the share price is still somewhat depressed.
But massive demand this morning, I saw.
Is there?
No supply. 150,000 shares on offer, about 10 million buyers.
Good Lord.
Yes.
I wish I was not tied up here. I was still But seriously, I think that the share price is still sitting, looking a little bit depressed.
Where would you like the share price to be?
Look, I mean, it's difficult for the CEO to say
yes.
what the share price
But what do you consider a fair value for given
Again,
what
I'm not going to get drawn.
Okay.
I can't get drawn on that one.
No.
Because my focus is really on just
delivering the numbers.
Deliver the numbers. If I manage the performance on the company,
yes.
I can't manage the performance on the share because it depends on a lot of other stuff.
No, I know.
So instead of putting your money into equity, you could be putting your money into cash.
Yes.
Your shillings into cash, and you get a better return.
Yeah.
Not just Safaricom, but pretty much anything on the market today. But shareholders need to get some returns. And we felt confident enough that we have enough cash.
Yes.
To do what we need to do in the coming year. We have committed to a progressive policy. And by progressive, we mean we will pay out at least what we paid out last year.
Yeah.
So this should not be an indication that we're going to go with a 10% increase every year. It'll be nice if we could.
Yes.
But we are guaranteeing that all things being equal, that we will pay out next year at least 8.8 billion. So it's about giving shareholders the confidence that they're going to be getting their money back over time. Excellent. And I was really, really pleased. Sorry, management and I were really pleased yesterday when the board accepted the recommendation and will now recommend it in turn to the AGM later in the year.
No, I think that was a great move. Now,
also, I knew it would surprise you guys.
Yes. I was worried about it. I thought, it was going to be difficult after the first half.
I know you thought it was going to come down.
No, but I mean, really, if you think of it as a football match, you were playing defense and you started to play some serious offense. You decided to go up the pitch, right, in the second half.
You have to.
Yeah.
You can't be sitting in a bunker if you're going to be running a company like this.
Yeah.
You do have to get assertive about things because you have to grow the company.
No, absolutely.
You have to grow value for shareholders, value for customers, and you're not going to do that if you play other people's games. And other people's games, we didn't think it ever made sense.
Yes.
And so there came a point when you said, enough is enough.
But it was tough, right? I mean, you had a very big competitor that was being very irrational. I mean, and it seems to me at least we've now got over that period, right? And you had to stand up and throw some punches.
Look,
and take them, right?
When Michael handed the job over to me, he never for a minute said
Yes.
this is going to be an easy job.
Yeah.
In fact, on the point of handing over, he says, you know, this is going to be tough. It's probably going to be tougher than it ever has done.
No, but
and it's been tough, and you know, with a lot of support from the team.
Yes.
Because I would say that I have an extraordinarily strong team.
Do you think that's one of your strengths, the human capital aspect?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know, Safaricom has, look, you know, Safaricom has some of the brightest people.
Yes.
In the country. It also has some of the most aggressive people.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to go compete with these guys, you know, even in jest.
Yes.
You know, we did a team building, and I always promised myself when I came to Kenya, never to run against the Kenyan. You know, I
Well,
just
that's a
think
sensible decision.
I just think it's completely daft. And you know, we have the Safaricom Marathon coming up in a few weeks, and I'll see all these foreigners who will come and attempt to run against Kenyans.
Oh, yes.
And there's a lot of foreigners who are going to run against Kenyans in the Olympics. I would have just saved the airfare if I were they. But I decided that I was never going to run against Kenyans. But team building, I ran against a Kenyan. Hurt my ankle, it still hurt. You know, this is like months later. Because we as a Safaricom team, we play to win. You know, we don't play to come second in anything. And I'm so honored and almost emotional about the commitment in this team to win every battle that we choose.
Yeah.
We don't, and when we lose some, which sometimes we lose, we get very upset about it. So,
what's your forward view? I mean, you know, you've had this big number, 22 cents in 6 months. You know, as investors, should we look and say to ourselves, you've now elevated into a new level of earnings? Can we project that forward? I know we can never sort of bet on the macro conditions. We've been caught before, all of us. The shilling was wild, inflation. But, you know, if you look at it, do you see yourself now in the driving seat? And do you feel that we've moved to a new level of earnings, that you have momentum here and traction?
I'm going to have to caution. Yes, we think that we are in the driving seat in a number of areas, not all. But I'm going to have to caution because we do face a tricky year.
Yes.
And interest rates are still sitting quite high.
They are, very high.
A CBK rate of 18%, and it's been running for some months now. However, that's kept a lid on the shilling, which is good news. We have an election year.
Yes.
And that's something which I think we all need to be cautious and concerned and proactive about.
Yes.
I mean, just
but aren't you fronting a sort of campaign on that?
I'm not sure I'm fronting it. I mean,
But
fronting is probably I'm fronting the company here. But we've got a thing called Kenya Daima.
Yeah.
And this is about it's a program which really supports a peaceful run-up to the election. And there are a lot of initiatives. You know, last week I went walking the streets of Nairobi with some reprobates, which is the Artists for Peace. And these guys are, you know, they're engaging at the grassroots because, you know, if you are a Jaguar or a Nameless or Giuliani, you know, you have quite a big following.
Yes.
People who trust you. They like your music, but they also trust you because they know that you've come from the same background. And it's easier for the youth to listen to them than it is to listen to people like you and I. You know, we live in an ivory castle, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so engaging the youth at the grassroots on this issue of non-tribal approach to the election, non-violent approach to the election, have a dialogue. So I'm massively, hugely supportive. Yeah. Both in my personal capacity, because I'm Bob.
Yes.
At the end of the day, at the beginning of the day and the end of the day, as
absolutely.
You know. And it matters to me. Yeah. But also as the CEO of Safaricom, because we are a company that. No,
but you're embedded in the ecosystem.
You know, 19 million of those folks out there are our customers. And so protecting their welfare and their interests is the right thing to do.
No, that's right.
But my next big thing is going to be road safety, because I just think we kill too many of our people, but we're getting off on a
so do
tangent.
Yes, sorry, let's just get back. I agree with you on that front as well. So your outlook, you're pretty confident about the next full year. You've delivered these very strong results, the best results that we've seen on a 6-month snapshot in Safaricom. We've played some defense, we're now playing more offense. You feel confident about the way forward?
I feel pretty confident.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at single-digit growth still.
Yes.
You know, we were okay this year in terms of growth. EBITDA, 35%, we think we can sustain that
Yes.
through the year.
Big CapEx expenditures coming for?
CapEx is going to be a little bit less than last
Yeah.
year. So we're looking at about 21 billion.
Yes.
It's 26 this year. And this year is going to be focused much more around, we need to fix a lot of issues, particularly around Western, where
Yeah.
the network is old, right? It needs modernizing. And we've already started a program, actually started that at the tail end of the last financial year. Because I personally don't think that we're delivering a good enough quality of service to our
Yeah.
customers in Western. So there's a lot of focus there. There's a lot of focus on building capacity because you've seen minutes have gone up. And I'm pleased to say if you look at the average minutes of use that the CCK reported for the country, and you look at our average minutes of use, we're sitting at quite a premium. I think they're at about 7 to 9 as an industry average, and we're sitting at just over 100. And if you look at the volume, you can see that some of our competitors perhaps is quite low. But that has led to capacity issues, and of course we have to put fiber in the ground. Because fiber in the ground is about delivering some cost advantage, and it's about delivering quality. And you're never going to get the 42 megabits per second, which I think you probably have something like that where you live, actually.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Well, occasionally, it seems.
Fantastic.
Yes. No, well done.
But the backhaul is always
Yeah.
going to be the limiting factor. And if you don't have the pipe to take it back, it's not going to make much sense. So that's where our CapEx intensity declining
Yeah.
over the years. We want to get that into the into the teens.
Yes.
At the moment, it's up in the 20s.
So I just want to say once more, well done. I mean,
Thank you.
I know you were asking me what my range was, and everyone sort of was surprised when I gave the range, but really you've done extremely well, and congratulations on the performance, and I'm very bullish, frankly, about the next 12 months. Thank you.
Go buy some shares. Huh?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thanks, Ali Khan.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Don.
Thank
Cheers.
you.